Good morning. Good morning. This is your host, Michael J. Long. It's 11:02 on June the 4th, 2020, and thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. There we go. So, anyways, I'd like to introduce well, no, I already introduced myself. Um, yeah, it's a wonderful day in the neighborhood. So if you like just real quick before I begin, if you like what you hear, if you like, just real quick before I begin, um, let me see if I can share my screen real quick. Um, so if you like what you're seeing, if you like what you see, you like what you hear, um, like if you like what I read, what I see, what I'm showing you, what you hear, blah blah blah, what you can do. Please, well, I would appreciate it if you did. Please hit the notification. Please hit the subscribe button on YouTube with the with the what do you call it? The subscribe button to the and then for Michael J. Long on the Issues podcast, hit the subscribe button, click the bell, hit all, and you're all good, and you'll be subscribed to any video that I come about. So I want to read to you. Let me see here. Peter Suderman thinks that it's time to bust the police unions and that it's time for them to go. He puts over and over, and he published this on Reason.com because, of course, he works for the Reason Foundation. He works for Reason.com. He's one of the editors, whatever, journalists that works for Reason. Stands for free markets and free minds. So he goes over and over again. Unions have defended policing, bad policing, and bad police. It's time for them to go. This was published on June the 3rd, 2020 at 12:19 p.m. So this was actually published at midnight on midnight. No, well, yeah. No, in the afternoon, I think. Yeah, in the afternoon on the 3rd of June, which was yesterday. In 2018, as a gunman murdered 17 students, a majority of Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, Sergeant Brian Miller, a sheriff deputy with the Broward County Sheriff's Office, hid behind his police cruiser, waiting 10 minutes to radio for help for his failure to act. Miller was fired. The official course was negligence of duty. Last month, however, Miller was not only reinstated but given a full paycheck. Wow, if that doesn't make you outraged, what does? His 2017 salary was more than 138,000. Miller had challenged his firing, and as the Miami Herald reports, he had done so with the full backing of his union. Miller reinstated is notable in that it relates to a high profile case. But the essential story, an officer performs poorly with fatal results and the union comes to his defense, is all too common. This is what police unions do: defend the narrow interest of police at the expense of public safety. They exist to demand that taxpayers pay for dangerous and even deadly negligence, and although they are not the only pathologically that affects Americans policing, they are a key internal influence on police culture, a locus of resistance to improvements designed to reduce police violence, to stop bad cops and police abuse. We must tackle police unions. Well, gee, I couldn't agree more. I would, from the point of this argument here, he goes on to say that in case after police unions have defended deadly misdeeds committed by law enforcement. In 2014, for example, New York City police officer Daniel Pantalo, whatever his name was, put Eric Garner in a chokehold. Oh yeah, I remember seeing that on the news for selling loose cigarettes. As a result of Palatano's chokehold, Garner died. Garner's last words were, "I can't breathe." The incident caught on video helped galvanize the Black Lives Matter movement. A grand jury declined to indict Pantalo, but 5 years after Garner's death, he was fired from the force following a police administrative judge's ruling that chokeholds was indeed a violation of department policy. Pantalo had violated his police department's policy in a way that resulted in the death of a man who was committing the most minor of offenses. Yet when he was finally fired, Patrick Lynch, the president of the police Benevolent Association Pantalo's union, criticized the city for giving in to anti-police extremists and warned that such decisions threatened the ability of the city police to do their jobs. We are urging all New York City police officers to proceed with the utmost certain caution in this new reality in which they may be deemed reckless just for doing their job, Lynch said. And in essence, the police union's position was officers of the law should not be punished for using prohibited techniques in ways that result in the deaths of nonviolent offenders, because to do so would undoubtedly inhibit police work. A deadly violation of department policy is just police doing their job. Too often when police routinely use deadly force, police unions slow or prevent justice. In March, undercover police raided a Louisville, Kentucky home. They used a battering ram to break down the door and blah, 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 fatally shot one of the occupants in unarmed emergencies. They got a video here where you can see Tom Cottons was down on the authoritarian never spoke. Taylor's death resulted in calls. So this is my YouTube channel here, and as you can see, I'm live. So anyways, going back to my prior statement, I'm gonna point it out like this. I'm not saying I either like or don't like the police unions, and I think he's making a very good point. However, Larry Sharp's suggested that ways that we could fix this mess of police violence and police brutality, along with Joe Georgeson, who's running for president on behalf of the Libertarian Party. So one of them was to actually end qualified immunity. And our fellow Libertarian Congressman Justin Amash has actually introduced a bill of some sort to the House, and most of them probably aren't going to vote for it. I hope they do. I hope it goes through. But even if it does, there's a possibility that President Donald Trump might veto it, because let's face it, he cares more about the police unions giving him money that he can pocket. And so whether or not we abolish the police unions or go after them is an entirely different matter. Larry Sharp suggested basically that we should end qualified immunity for policing. That's part of the issues, that when they do something like that, their families, anybody else who gets victimized, they can't file a civil lawsuit against them because of qualified immunity. The other thing is, and I'm not saying that all police are bad or good, but there's a mix, but the bad cops are basically allowed to evade justice because in part because of the police union, but also because there's other factors such as qualified immunity, where people are essentially blocked from actually filing civil lawsuits against bad police officers who engage in violent activities or engage in imposing danger, force, or fraud, or actually endangering the lives of others in the process. The other thing we can do that he suggested is to deschedule marijuana as a Schedule 1 narcotic, and acid forfeiture, especially at the local, state, county, and national level. And there's a fourth one too. But those are some of the things we can do. And, he's got really good plans. Even the chairman of the Fulton County Libertarian Party, which I'm a part of, has actually published his findings of what we could do on the Fulton County Libertarian Facebook page and all that. So there's ways to get around that and all that. But I mean, I don't support all the rioting that's been going on. I don't. And some of it may be agent provocateurs from different police departments, especially at the federal level. And I should remind everyone that the federal police agencies actually are way more powerful, have more resources, and are far more abusive, including the U.S. Marshals and the DEA and the NSA and the CIA. They're more potent than the average local police departments. But of course, I'm not throwing the local police departments off the hook either or giving them a bone to chew. Rather, I'm saying that the less policing we have, the more we can keep it at the local, state, and county level, the better. But we should probably also end qualified immunity. I support ending qualified immunity, and also and Larry Sharp mentioned this too, but let's also allow them to carry their own private insurance or whatever. Even the unions could be a private insurance for that matter. And they would be actually forced to be more responsible. And so that instead of the government going after them, the insurance companies that they have would make the decisions whether to fire them or and charge them a retribution cost of however much or whatever. And they would be more likely to face justice in times of these circumstances. But this has been going on since the 60s. I mean, it's unbelievable that this continues to go on, and especially as recent as, the following month or two when George Floyd was ultimately killed in the hands of the police. And all they did, this one officer actually kneeled on his neck and till he died for about 4 or 5 minutes before getting off of him. And at least 3 other police officers stood by and did nothing. And, of course, no justice. And if there is justice, you can bet the police unions are going to probably, according to Peter Suderman, and I'm not saying he's lying. I mean, there is a lot of corruption in the police unions. They get a lot of money, especially on behalf of the taxpayers, and it's sad in a way, but this is what's going on. So also, so he goes on to say, basically that Tyler's death, which is another one, resulted in calls for officers involved to be fired. And the Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher warned that the process would be slow. And that's the other thing too. Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, has actually ordered the military to clear out some park in D.C. so he could do some photo op, and he's supported sending the military in to quell the violence and all that. And he does have legal authority to send the National Guards in. However, I'm not sure he has the legal authority to send the regular army, the regular military, and all that to quell such violence in such adversity. So that actually could be challenged. I could be wrong on that. But I mean, here's the deal. The fact that you have this is a guy that, supports asset forfeiture beyond demand. He supports, as I've stated before, he supports that and these endless wars that he wants to continue. And apparently, big bad China wants to invade us and all this hunky-dunky monkey piss that is reinforced by news outlets like One America News and people like Liz Wheeler and Fox News and CNN and MSNBC, Newsmax and whatever. The conservative end of the mainstream media seems to be supporting the president, and there seems to be this claim that the leftists and everybody else who isn't on board with being conservative, including libertarians, actually are trying to um, bring down the president. And I don't think that's what we're doing. I think if any, or I don't think that's the intent of the libertarians, anyways, like myself. I don't know what the left is doing with that. I don't know if they're trying to or not, because I don't pay much attention to what they do. I'm a libertarian. I pointed that out many times before. Um, no, I think ending the drug war is what we need to do, because and ending asset forfeiture and making them have their own private insurance. I think these are reforms that we can get behind as libertarians, even though even though Larry Sharp's not currently running as VP. I know that Joe Georgeson, who's won the Libertarian nomination to be the presidential nominee for the Libertarian Party, has actually pointed that out, or some of them out, in conjunction to some of our own planning, which you can actually view on our website, campaign site, through https www.joge2020.com, I believe it is, for short for Joe Georgeson. She's the first female libertarian nominee to accept the nomination post for the Libertarian Party. So she is currently our standard bearer and the first Libertarian female to be so. And so you got a choice, basically, if you want this police corruption to continue, and that is, you can support someone like President Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and neither one of them are going to give a damn about your civil liberties and your rights and your freedom and your free speech and all that, or you can support Joe Georgeson and your right to decide for yourself what you choose to put in your own body, how you choose to spend your money, raise your children, and how you choose to live your life, who you choose to do business with, and so on and so forth, as long as you don't impose danger, force, or fraud to others. As long as you don't as long as you're not an imminent danger to anybody, where, you should be all right, you should be good. That's what we want. We want civil liberties, we want freedom, marriage equality, an open border immigration policy that allows for the free flow of people, goods, and services, free trade, so on and so forth. And I think we should have free trade with China and North Korea and Iran and Cuba and Venezuela. And I think we should lift the trade embargo on Cuba. And I think we should do a lot of things that we aren't doing, because we're electing dictators like President Donald Trump and governors like His Majesty King Andrew II, or as Larry Sharp puts it, or whatever it is we're doing. And the end result is now we have a national deficit that I don't think the president even gives a damn about, nor does he support, because he supports raising the debt ceiling and all that. And when Obama was in charge and he was doing that, the Republicans complained about that, of course. And I'm not giving Obama a pass on that. But Trump's been in office now for 4 years. So for 4 years, he could have done something to fix this law enforcement issue that we have with the police. For 4 years, he could have done something to support our gun rights the moment he got elected, instead of banning bump stocks, and telling people what they should and shouldn't do with their firearms, and then turn around and say, oh, but I support the Second Amendment, whatever. For 4 years, we've had endless wars now under his administration. For 4 years, he's renewed the NDAA, the Patriot Act, which is now, I guess, going to be called the Freedom Act. I don't care what it's called. It's stupid. It's authoritarian. We don't need it. There's other ways we can solve terroristic threats without endangering the civil liberties of the general public. So the policing issue that Peter Suderman is pointing out is the tip of the iceberg, folks. It's the tip of the iceberg. It's nowhere. It's the tip of the iceberg. It's a lot. In other words, it's a lot deeper than that. There's more to it than, oh yeah, let's get rid of the unions, or the police unions, so to speak. And I actually support the right to unionize and the right to support them, as long as it's done through the free market. And the problem with most unions today, is that they're not run by the free market. They're run by government. And then they force anyone who doesn't want to participate in being part of a union to pay non-union dues. They go by superiority. So if you're someone that's been in the job longer, they don't care whether you're a good worker or not. They're going to keep you. And that's because the unions are not run by the free market and by the consumer and by people like you and me. They're run by the government. And that's why they are the way they are. So if anything, we should instead of looking at it from the perspective of we should abolish the unions, maybe we should get the government out of the way of the unions and let the public decide what they feel is appropriate in terms of whether they want to join a union or to have their free market protege not participate in a union or whatever. And maybe the unions, and then whatever unions come up, they may or may not say you have to pay union dues, but then that would be dependent upon the union. And, for anybody who's a member, maybe they won't force anyone to pay non-union dues. I don't know how that would work in a free society. I'm assuming what they would do is they would say, okay, anybody who doesn't want to participate in this union, they don't have to actually be part of this union. You can still work here. But if you want representation, you join the union or whatever, and then they don't have to pay non-union dues or whatever. And at least that's the way it should be instead of, oh, well, you still got to pay non-union dues, which are going to go to the union and you're not going to get any representation because that sounds more like a ripoff. But yeah, police unions are embedded in supporting corruption and bad police officers, and that is because the police unions and government workers have their own unions for each division of public so-called work, and that's because they're supported by the backs of the taxpayers. That's because they're government unions. That's because they're government run, and that's why they are the way they are. And I don't see getting rid of them anytime soon as something that is even plausible at this point in time. And not only that, it doesn't seem likely that we would be able to get rid of them anytime soon. Although we could legally, but the public support just isn't behind that. I don't think. I don't know, but at least that's what I'm guessing. So yeah. With all that said, I am Michael J. Long. It is now 11:24 p.m. or a.m. on June the 4th, 2020, and thank you for joining me. I sincerely